and welcome everyone to Friday night at the Taste Talks. Sruthi Swaminathan is here and she is ready to show you all how to make a vegetarian chili with a Chipotle Crema in your Instant Pot. So it is perfect for weeknight. It's great for having an easy weekend dinner. We are all excited to see her make this all come together. So let's have Sruthi take it away.
Okay, thank you, Christine. So one thing I'll say, which I updated in the recipe, is yes, I have made this in the Instant Pot, but I thought that for the purposes of this demonstration, just so you guys could kind of see the things develop, because in the Instant Pot, it's kind of closed and like doing its thing. I'm gonna actually do it in the Dutch oven today, but I'll give you some instructions for how to kind of adapt this for the Instant Pot as well. All right, so let's get started. So today we're going to be doing a vegetarian chili. I used to, like, growing up when I would hear chili, I just always thought it just meant like meat pie or something. Like, I don't know what I thought, because it was always like kind of meaty and I didn't really eat beef and pork that much back then. So I never really had it. And then I realized it's really just like a thick stew with meats and veggies, and seasonings and spices and herbs all kind of mixed together. So in today's version, we're going to be doing a vegetarian type of it. And so I'm going to just show you how to make it, and keep in mind that if you'd rather do like minced beef or minced chicken or something like that, it's very easy to just sub that out. And it's one of the last things that we'll add in, because I'm going to be making it a little bit differently. Okay, let's get started. I have here this large Dutch oven. This is like a 8-quart, I think. I don't know that I'm going to be making 8 quarts of this, but I figure we'll start with that. So tilt this a little. So all I have in here is I just warmed up some butter with a little oil. So I always, when I have butter, put in a little bit of oil so that it doesn't burn as quickly. The first thing we're going to do, as in most of my recipes, is we're going to add a whole lot of onions. So what I have here is I have some purple or red onion and some white onion as well. So I would say this is about 2 cups or so of onion. And if you don't like onion that much, of course, feel free to swap it out. But I find that any recipe that I make where I start off with sauteing a lot of onion and just kind of slowly building that flavor turns out better than edible. I say that because there's all kinds of reasons dishes could go wrong later on, but here I'm just starting off with onion, and we're going to cook this down just a little bit, maybe like 4 to 6 minutes or so. Give it a good mix of a oil and butter coat all of it. And actually add a splash more. I always feel like I'm adding a lot when I use this, but it's this thin spout and it like kind of snakes out. So you actually measure it out, it's not that much. Okay, and while this is in here, I'm just going to salt this a little bit. I'm trying to be a little bit better about salting at every stage. I used to think that, you know, when you hear like, oh, too much salt in the diet and like high blood pressure and this and that, it turns out that usually comes from eating processed foods and the amount of salt that's in there. You're not really going to, I'm not a medical doctor. So I guess this is a part where I say, talk to your doctor before following.
Your instructions.
Advice. And this is my disclaimer. No, but I used to be like, oh, I'm going to cut out salt and stuff. But when I read Samin Nosrat's Salt, Fat, Acid, Heat book, which isn't so much of a recipe book as like a how to cook book, she talks about like the importance of salt. So I kind of did a lot of research then around like, how am I going to be adding that much salt to my things and not have it be a health thing? It turns out a lot of salt really comes from, again, processed things, and you can't control the amount of salt in there. If you're salting your onions and you're salting your pasta water, that's not kind of the main cause of it, from what I understand. Okay, so while those onions are going, I'm going to talk a little bit about like what else we're going to be putting in here. And then once they kind of soften up, we'll start adding them. So I'm going to start this with a pretty classic base, I guess. And then you'll see I kind of diverge from the traditional chili from there. So for the classic base, we have some onion in there already. I'm gonna be adding some celery and some carrot. Nice color. For me, the carrot gives a little bit of sweetness and also texture because it's kind of a heartier vegetable where if you're cooking it down, it's not completely turning to mush in this chili. And then the celery, it does get a little bit softer, but I personally do not like celery. I don't think it contributes anything to food or taste wise, but I add it to things when I'm looking for a little bit of bulk, but I'm not looking to kind of interfere with other flavors. So you'll never find me kind of like chewing on a celery stick, like dipped in ranch or something like that. But you will find me adding it to like soups and kind of cooking it down to add bulk to whatever I'm making. So we're going to start with that, cook those down, and then start adding in some more aromatics. Another thing I'll say about this chili is at the end of the recipe that I sent, I kind of added in like some options for how you can tailor it, you know, how you can change up the herbs or the seasonings. But I really think of chili as like a emptying your refrigerator type dish. I know it's traditionally made with things like beans, which we are going to be using here, meats, we're using a meat substitute. But if I had a bunch of like potato, I might put it in there, maybe not in whole chunks, but I might boil it, puree it a little bit to give it that creaminess, and then add it back to the chili to give it that creamy texture instead of using milk or cream. If I had cauliflower, I would 100% be adding that to this chili. My favorite way to add it would probably be to roast it and then add it at the end as a topping. So I encourage you to kind of think about that is any ingredient you're using, try to think of like a couple different ways you could use it even in the same dish. That ensures that if you have a whole head of cauliflower, you're not just using half of it in the chili and you're like, what am I going to do with the rest of it? And it goes bad. I always try to kind of finish off the thing that I'm taking out so that I'm not wasting it. And it forces me to kind of be creative and think of ways that I can use that ingredient that I may not have thought of before. All right. So let's go back here. We see these onions soften nicely. They're starting to brown a little bit at the bottom. We're not really trying to crisp them up. And another thing to keep in mind here is like, this is going to cook for a little while. It's not something we're just like flash cooking. This is not a stir fry. And so the onions are going to have a chance to cook further once we add in the broth and add in the tomatoes and really add in the liquid of this chili. But I like to do this step because it allows some of the onion flavor to be more intense. I'm just going to add a little bit of pepper as well. And then now that the onions have softened a little bit, I'm going to add some green chili just right here. So again, I think in one of the recent recipes, I just accidentally had too much fun listening to some music or something and like chopped too many chilies. I'm going to start here with just, this is one serrano chili. Mix that in. I can already kind of smell that heat that it's bringing to it. I saw a meme today on Instagram, which was like, people are always asking me like what I'm smelling, what I'm cooking that smells so good, but all I'm doing is sauteing onions and garlic, right? That's really all you have to do. Like, you know how around the holidays, people will boil just like some oranges and orange peels and cinnamon and cloves and stuff to make their house like a natural fragrance for the house. I feel like onions and garlic kind of do that for your kitchen.
What was the green?
Next we're gonna, sorry, what was that?
What was the green that you just added?
That was green chili. So it was like a serrano chili.
Okay.
Yep, okay. Next we're gonna add in the celery as well as the carrot. It's a like classic combo. I also love the colors of this. I used purple and white onion because I had it, but I also love how it looks. If only that onion stayed that vibrant color at the end. Something that's very common in Indian cuisine, at least for several dishes, is to use is to use raw onion as a garnish. So if you're eating like some kind of curry, or there's a dish called pav bhaji, which is basically dinner rolls that are nicely toasted, and then a vegetable mash almost that you can make in the pressure cooker or Instant Pot with like potatoes and cauliflower and peas and carrots and a lot of like masalas, juice, seasonings, and spices. And then you kind of eat the bread with that. The best part about that is the toppings at the end. And you'll see I actually have some ideas for toppings for this chili. But in that case, raw onions are a very popular topping. So there you kind of have this like dark brown vegetable mash. You have the brown and white kind of hamburger bun bread. And then you have like purple or white onion. And then you have some green cilantro. And sometimes you have some like white yogurt on the side. So it's like a feast for the eyes as well. Okay. Keep this down a little bit. Something I'm putting in here that I don't think is super traditional to chili. Well, I'm putting in garlic, which you can add, of course, and I have a good amount of garlic. This is about, I asked my parents to bring some garlic for me from the grocery store when they went, and they just, I think it's called like, is elephant
garlic,
I think?
the giant cloves. Yeah.
Yeah, they're giant. Like one of those cloves is probably equivalent to like 3 or 4 regular cloves. And I have like 2 of them here. So it's going to be garlicky, but the amount that I'm making now is probably also going to serve like 10 to 12 people. So it works out. So the garlic is something you can of course add. I'm also adding a little bit of ginger here. So ginger is something you might associate it more with like more Asian dishes at times. But again, I love to cook. Like when I started my food blog back in like 2011. I've had a blog for many, many years. I haven't updated it since, well, it's been a while. But my blog was called Kitchening Around. And the reason it was called that is because it was all about like throwing together things you find in the kitchen and seeing what comes of it, versus being really strict about like following a recipe or following a procedure and having specialized equipment. So all that to say that the reason the ginger is going in here today is because if I did not use this piece of ginger, it was not going to last the weekend. And it's going to add something to this. It'll add like a little bit of like a lemony pungent note in the back, but we're adding so little of it. This is maybe like a 1/2 inch piece minced that it might kind of be in the background, but it's not going to overwhelm anything. Okay, let's go back here. All right, so you can see that the onions have cooked down further. The carrots and celery are looking good too. I'm going to add just a little bit more salt here. Give it a stir and then put in the ginger and garlic. There are some recipes, not just chili recipes, but when I'm looking at recipes online, that they'll sometimes have you add the garlic in at the beginning along with the onions and things. I almost never do that just because I always have the onions cook for longer, and I don't want burnt garlic. I don't like burnt garlic. And I found that when I add it in at the beginning, either I forget or I forget it's in there. I forget to turn the heat down as I should. Excuse me. False alarm. Okay. Already I've added no spices in here and I'm already about to sneeze. Oh, I guess there's some pepper.
You got the serrano, yeah.
Yes, the serrano and the pepper. All right, next thing we're gonna add in garlic and ginger right in the middle. Sometimes when I'm adding in the garlic, I'll put in like a little splash of oil in there just so that the garlic has something to kind of cook in. I find that if I just put it into the dry pan, sometimes it tends to burn more easily from the direct heat from the bottom of the pan. And I also make sure my heat is not up too high at this time. We're gonna let that just kind of sit in there for maybe a minute. You're not gonna need too much because it is going to cook, or not cook all the way through, but it's gonna kind of get aromatic pretty soon. All right. So there is another vegetable we're gonna add in here before we kind of add in the sauces. In the past, when I've made this, I've usually added it in like with the carrots and celery, but I find more and more that this is one vegetable that I try to add as late as possible. And that is bell pepper. I have green bell pepper here. It's because, you know, you look at it and it's like nice and crispy and crunchy, great in salads and wraps and etc. And you can also put it in here to bulk it up, add a little bit of that flavor, that bell peppery flavor. It's not really spicy, but if you add it in too soon, they're so watery that it turns to mush, and not in a way where it kind of just nicely blends into the background, but it's almost like an unpleasant texture, let's call it. At least I don't like when it gets all mushy. So I added in a little bit later, and I promise you it's not going to be undercooked by any means by the time you're done. And again, it's because it does have a lot of water in it. You're going to see that kind of release and go on. Okay. So once you add the bell peppers in, I'm going to go ahead and add in my spices. So I actually blended them all together here, but I'll let you know what's actually in here this time, because I've again made this with different variations of spices. So this time we're going to see there's dried sage. I'm super into sage recently. I made a pasta for this class last week and there was sage in there. I put sage in something else I made this week. So this has dried sage, ground thyme, and it also has cumin, paprika, and chili powder. So I'm going to add this in. Let's see right there. Again, I know this looks like a lot of seasoning, but remember, we still haven't added the liquid in. We haven't added the beans. All of that liquid is going to get absorbed by the beans. Okay. Wow, that smells good. So I add the seasonings at this stage because it really helps to bloom the spices when you add it in before you have a lot of liquid in there. My mom used to say, you know, the order that you add things matters, and I didn't think that was true, but it of course does matter, and she's of course right, because this way it has more contact with the pan. It's allowed to kind of like develop a little more before I add in the liquid portion of this. So I'm just going to let that sit for a couple minutes. So we talked about like how you can customize this. So you'll see in the recipe, I've added like a few examples of how you can customize it. Everything from like, yes, you can use real meat instead of the veggie or soy crumble that I'm going to use. You could switch up the spices. So you could switch up the amount of spices you add in. You could add in smoked paprika instead of paprika if you want that smokier, like barbecue-ish flavor. You could add like an Italian seasoning blend if you wanted, if you don't have ground thyme and sage just on hand. I think the idea is to be okay with things tasting differently. That like, I know some people cook things and they're like, I want it to turn out exactly the same way every time. But I kind of like the excitement of like making something, and in kind of cooking a number of times, I just learned that like, it's okay if it tastes different. The key for me is to know intuitively like what things go well together and to be able to improvise on the spot. And because I kind of started off cooking like that, where I just kind of was like, what do I have? What can I mix together? And I guarantee you there were some horrible combinations in the past. But now I'm just like, if I'm going to make Brussels sprouts, I'm not going to stew them. I'm going to roast them just because I know the certain ways that I prefer them and like my taste. Okay, so this is starting to smell great. Let me just show you this again. Scurrying past. Okay, so you'll see there's little bits of the spices like stuck on the bottom. That's okay. That's all flavor that is going to be lifted off the bottom once we add in our tomatoes and add in our broth. Okay. Next thing I'm going to do is add in these tomatoes. So I just have, this one just says like, this one says tomato sauce. You can also use like diced tomatoes. you're using whole tomatoes, I would just crush them and put them in if you're okay with having a little bit of texture. Okay. And then I also have a can of diced tomatoes here. And another thing I've mentioned in the recipe is adding in some tomato paste for kind of some extra concentrated tomato flavor. But I'm going to kind of try it this way now because I thought I bought it and I bought it and I looked at it and it was somehow an expired can. So I'm not adding it here, but know that you can, if you really want some concentrated tomato flavor, which you will get from this, you can always add in the tomato paste. Okay, along with that, we're going to add in some vegetable stock. So you can see it's pretty thick now, but keep in mind, like there's still more stuff to add. Like we haven't even added the beans yet. So at this stage, it's going to be about 4 cups. And this is a very large serving. Okay. Stir this. And this is also the time when we're going to kind of get to a couple of the other things that we need to do to, we're going to make a crema that'll go on top of the chili for serving. And then we're also going to kind of set up all of the toppings that we're going to put on the chili once it's done. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is you could do it a couple different ways. You could kind of let this simmer, come to a simmer, and then add in the beans just to kind of allow the spices and the sauce to get together. Or you could just add in the beans right now so that everything simmers together, and as the flavors are building, they just get kind of incorporated into the beans. So I'm just going to add the beans now to save us some time. So here I have a combination of black beans and pinto beans. You can also use like cannellini beans. I don't know if those are the same as butter beans. I know they look kind of similar. They're kind of like flattish and white. But yeah, any beans of your choosing. So I'm just kind of adding in a mix of this. Usually when I make these things, they're gone in like 2 days, but this is going to be a good portion. And it turns out, I know you guys are all in Chicago, like it's actually a great day to be making this because it is cold and rainy, or not as cold, but it's quite rainy outside. Just gonna put the rest of this in. Okay, and now I'm gonna give this a stir. You'll see right now it's looking more like a soup. It's more watery. The idea is we really want it to thicken up a little bit. So I am going to cook this uncovered for a little bit. And that will help evaporate some of this liquid as it cooks. And just look at the colors in there. There's like black and brown and light brown and orange and green. Like it just looks pretty. Okay, giving this a stir. A little more salt to season at this stage. And I'm also careful when I'm using things which are canned because they tend to have some salt in them already. I always drain and rinse my beans before adding them, but I tend to like not add as much as I usually would because I don't want to over salt this. Putting a little bit more pepper. I think this is one of the first times this pot has actually been this full. I like hesitate to use this pot because I'm like, oh, I'm not making that much, but it's actually quite full. All right,
perfect for the time of year.
Yes, absolutely. Okay. So we're going to let that cook a little bit. And in the meantime, we are going to make, one of these lights is out. We are going to make the crema that's going to go on top of this. So I'm a big fan of like, so this is obviously going to be like very hearty, very rich in that like the beans are going to give it that kind of like extra body and some creaminess just from if some of them get squished in there and things like that. I'll talk about that a little bit. later, but I also want at the end to have something that's like similar to what's in the pot, but not exactly. So what I'm gonna do is make a crema, which is chipotle peppers in adobo sauce. So again, keeping with the theme of chili, like the chipotle chili, we have red chili powder in there. We have paprika. We have all of these kind of spices in there, but now I'm going to add a little bit of a smoky element, which is also why I didn't add smoked paprika in there earlier myself. I added regular paprika because I knew I was adding chipotle peppers and adobo sauce. Let's see if I could. No, that can is gone. But I think I've shown these before. They come in like a little tin can like this, and inside they kind of look like this. So it's this really deep kind of maroon brown, pretty easy to find at like most restaurants or most grocery stores. So what we'll do is we're going to make that sauce now. And I'm going to show you my little food processor. I've resisted buying like a full-size food processor just because I don't know, I feel like I don't have too many times when I'm wishing I had one. And when I am making little things like sauces, I just use my mini one. All right, so let me show you this. Here's this food processor. See that? Okay. And I just kept laid out kind of all of the ingredients that I'm going to add into that. So we open this up. Put in the chipotle peppers and adobo sauce. There is my spoon. I'm gonna grab another one. I'm gonna put this in. Added like 3 chipotle peppers and probably 3 to 4 tablespoons of the sauce that it actually comes in. You don't need much more than that. And again, you can make this to taste. Like if you want more of that smoky chipotle flavor, add more of this. If you want less, add a little less. We're also going to put in some sour cream because again, you don't want everything to just be heat. And because we are going to have some heat from the serrano chilies and the chili powder and things in the chili, here, yes, we have the chipotle pepper, but I'm going to try to use this a little more for flavor and a little less for intense spice. So what that means is I have to mellow this out. And to mellow it out, I'm going to be using some sour cream. You can also use something, you can use like creme fraiche if you'd like. Sour cream might be a little bit easier to find and a little less expensive. So I'm just going to kind of add this in. We'll see if we need more of this. And then I'm also going to add in some lime juice. I'm going to add in the juice of like half a lime because you do want a little bit of that acidity to match some of that heat and some of that spice. One thing I want to be careful here is not to get the seeds in because those are very bitter. If you put that in and then it's blending it, so I just caught a seed, then you're going to end up with some bitterness that's may not be what you want in this crema. Okay. And then I'm also going to add, because I love garlic, I'm going to add a little more garlic to this dressing. And this is
about the garlic.
I have to. And this is just going to add a little bit. And this is neat because like we have garlic in the chili, but this is going to be in a slightly different form. And it's raw, so it will be a little bit more pungent. But again, you're not like drinking the sauce by itself. Well, I mean, you can if you'd like, but you're not like, it's not the intent. So, and then we're going to add in a little bit of avocado here. Again, for that creaminess to mellow things out. You could skip the avocado here and just use it as a topping, but I find that it contributes some, not just to the creaminess and like mellowing it out, but also to the color. I'm always looking for like when I ultimately plate it, if that chili is going to be brown, I don't want my sauce to be brown as well. I would like some variety in it. Use the smaller knife. I don't need to be cut too small, actually. I just need to be able to scoop this out. So what I'm doing now is actually like more of a representation of how I usually cook, meaning I always get one thing going while I'm working on other things. I wish I could say I always just have like everything laid out before I cook, but that's just not the case. So yeah, I'll usually like, even with the onions, like I'll start the onions and I know they're going for a while. So I'll use that time to like chop up the rest of things, which honestly is probably why I don't add garlic at the beginning, because I forget and chopping takes a while and I don't want garlic to burn. Okay, look at the colors in here. There's like the maroon, the white, the green, and well, then the white from the garlic. Now we're gonna add just a little bit of water to thin this out. We can add more if we need it. All right, should I mute or just go, Christine?
Just go, because it'll mute you now.
Okay.
See, Zoom is smart. It knows that it's not something we want to necessarily listen to. So.
Did you hear that?
No.
Oh,
we didn't.
good.
Yeah.
Okay, and then we're gonna add in a little bit more water. Okay, so I don't know if you guys do this. I just realized what that little hole, or maybe it's not for that. I'm just using it for that. Is that what that's for?
Yeah.
Oh, I like saw this and I was like, wow, I just found this hack on like this book.
Add things without opening it up.
Yeah, I never knew that. I was always like opening it up, stuff was getting everywhere. And then I was like, oh, this is probably in here so pressure doesn't build. And anyway. Okay. Oh my God, look at that. Look at the color of that. It's like a nice light creamy. It almost looks like Chipotle mayo or something. It probably tastes nothing like it. I'm just gonna make sure that there's no chunks. There's still a few chunks of avocado. I'm gonna taste this really quick. Oh my God. Okay. I dare say it's perfect. I dare say it's perfect. It definitely has a kick from the chipotle peppers, but the sour cream mellows it out. The avocado makes it creamier. Oh my God, I just said before that no one's going to be drinking this as is, but
You're like,
I might just be like, well, the thing about this sauce is like, you can make this, you can drizzle it over the chili, but you can also use it to like spread for grilled cheese. Oh, great question, Jens. Yeah, you can spread it as like on one side of grilled cheese. I'll sometimes use like pesto or tahini for that. Tahini is another thing you could add in this sauce, by the way. I'm a fan of tahini. You'll get a nice like sesame nutty flavor. You could also add some of that in the chili if you'd like, but that's a separate thing. But to use the sauce, you can put it in grilled cheese. I would even use it as like a base for pizza. So if you're making like a naan pizza or something and you want to go beyond the traditional red marinara sauce, you could spread this on there. What else could you use it for? You could
use it on sandwiches. You can use
Yeah.
it on tacos with falafel. I mean, seriously, there's so
with
many
falafel, it
things.
would be great. And you know what else this could be cool for? It could be cool as a marinade for your meats. So if you want to marinate like your chicken or something, and you're looking to, I'll sometimes do like a yogurt and Indian spice blend for my chicken marinade or a salmon marinade. This would be really good on salmon, I feel. You could make a big batch of this, pour it into a Ziploc bag, add in the salmon, and then like marinate it in that, you know, and then take it out and cook it later. So this could be a marinade, it could be a spread, it could be a garnish or a drizzle like we're doing here. And again, I try to make things that I can't just use in one way, because then it just is a little bit boring and it's like a little bit intimidating for me. It's intimidating for me to, or I just get nervous about it because I'm like, I'm making all this, what am I going to use it for? Like, you know, so as I'm making it, I'm like, well, great job making this, because here are all the things you could, like, I don't just do this on the talks. Like I'm thinking, and sometimes I'm jotting stuff down. I'm like, use it for this, use it for this. It's like, you know what else would be good for? A pasta sauce. You could use this as a pasta sauce and like just cook your pasta, pour this, like maybe warm it up a little if you want, pour it over and top it with some cheese and like call it a day. So really easy pasta sauce, doesn't involve cooking. Doesn't involve like, there's raw garlic in here, you know, and it doesn't matter. So
Will
All right,
you use
any
it as-
other questions?
will you use it as a salad dressing or it's too overpowering?
Great idea, yeah.
Mhm.
You could absolutely use it as a salad dressing. Okay, so this thing is just cooking away. We're gonna let that happen because we have two more things to do while that keeps simmering away. We're gonna set this, we're gonna set this aside and make the next thing, which is going to be the toppings. So with any dish, like I said, I mentioned, pav bhaji before. My favorite part of like many dishes is the toppings that you get to do. So even with tacos, yeah, it's like a tortilla and meat and some veggies, but if you get to customize them, like do like a taco night or something, that's really exciting. If you can, I've even seen this with like bibimbap. Like I've thought about with Korean bibimbap, making the individual components and then letting people choose kind of what they want in their individual bowl. So that way you don't have to make a big batch and worry about who eats what. You just lay everything out and people can choose what they want. So for the toppings here, we're gonna have a few things. We're gonna have cheese. So this is just shredded cheddar. I almost said shredder. Do you guys
Shredder?
ever watch like Teenage Mutant
Mutant
Ninja
Ninja
Turtles?
Turtles.
Okay, you remember Shredder the rat. Okay, yeah, I was like shredded cheddar is shredder. You should ask Lydia what she thinks about that.
Oh my gosh.
She would be like,
We're just gonna
it's
call
not official, but
we're just gonna call shredded cheddar shredder from now on.
shredder, yeah.
It's appropriate. It's a rat. They like cheese, right?
Why not? Why not? Oh, guys, you know what I just realized? I forgot to add something to that dressing, which we could still add, which is honey. So I mentioned,
you like
I
to
have
add
honey,
your
I have it right here. It was like behind something. I might actually add it in a little bit. We'll see, but it tastes great as is. But the honey again is in there to cut some of that little bit, not really full bitterness, but like a little bit of the bitterness and smokiness of the chipotle peppers. But we have things to mellow it out, but sometimes the sweetness can really balance the spice nicely. So you're not going to end up with like a sweet sauce by adding the honey. It's just going to add like something in the background that you're like, what is that? And it's the honey that I forgot. So we may add the honey in there, TBD. In the meantime, the toppings are going to be shredder. We're also going to have sour cream, which we have some left over. We can put that in a little dollop. We're going to drizzle it with the sauce that we have. We are also going to top it with fresh cilantro, which I have here. And then I realized I had some oregano in the fridge. So I add this as like an option in the menu, but I realized I had some fresh oregano in the fridge. So I've just kind of minced it and we're going to put that in there too. At some point I might add a little bit into the chili itself and then add the rest of it as a topping. So that's what we have. We have shredded cheese, cheddar, sage, sour cream, cilantro, and the sauce. Now, the other thing that's going to be a topping, which is maybe different than how you're how you're used to thinking about chilies, is we are going to add in the veggie crumbles as a topping instead of kind of cooking it in with the chili. So let me move you over here. I'm gonna have to move this pot. I think I told you last time, Christine, I tried like using this to take something out of the toaster oven and it like melted off.
Melted, yeah.
Too hot. Can't withstand
Was
400.
yeah, your toaster oven / air fryer, right?
Yeah, exactly. Okay, here's the skillet. I'm gonna heat a little bit of oil in it. Let's turn this on. And as I'm making this, I'll kind of talk through why we're doing this. Right, so usually you have like your beef and your chicken and you're searing it a little bit maybe, and then you're cooking it in with the chili. So those meats also need a longer time to cook. This does not need that much time to cook. So all this is here, I'll show you what it is. This says Beyond Meat, Beyond Beef, plant-based ground. Oh, it's actually no soy, no gluten, and no GMOs. So it's not really the soy one, it's just a different kind. It's the Beyond brand. So what I found with these is they cook really, really fast. And what happens is if I put it in like a soup or a stew or a chili, they again turn to mush. And part of this is I want to have that texture, a little bit of that like that heft that comes with it. So because of that, wow, this looks like a combination of like refried beans and like very ground beef. I'm just gonna put this in here. And because I do want that texture of it, we are gonna cook it separately and use it as a topping. Because it doesn't really hold up as well as beef or chicken in the stew. And so we want it, we want some of the texture. This is a way to do it, is to include it, but include it as a different component. And my parents are also vegetarian, and so they're gonna have some of this later. So I wanna make sure I'm being inclusive. I don't know if I mentioned earlier, I use vegetable broth with this, but of course you can use like a chicken broth. I personally find that like beef broth has a little stronger flavor. And to me, it kind of interferes with the rest of the flavors in it. And I don't particularly like beef broth. So I tend to use chicken broth or vegetable broth for these things. Okay. So all I'm going to do is just season this with some salt and pepper, nothing fancy. We have plenty of flavor elsewhere. And this has a little bit of flavor in it too, but all we're going to do is some salt and some pepper. Oops, that has to come on. You can always make more of this as you need. You'll see I haven't really use this whole thing. This is about, let's see, like a pound of this. I haven't used the whole thing. I maybe used like half of it. Again, because I'm using it as a topping. I may use the rest of it in something else. I may make like a fried rice and add this in as the protein. I'm just going to save the rest of that. This color is pretty similar to beef. Go for a little bit. One thing I might do in the meantime, we'll move over here for a second while that cooks down, is I think what I'll do is I'll cut up the rest of this avocado to use as an additional kind of, oops, that is not coming out. Let's do, but this one just do it as. So again, like going back to that theme of using the same ingredient in different ways, I cut up half the avocado to put in that sauce. If I save this half, it's going to brown in no time. So I want to make use of it now. And so I'm going to use it as an additional topping for the chili. Okay, let's do that a little bit. Let me just cut up this avocado. You can cut it however you like. You can cut it lengthwise if you like that better for presentation. You could make little cubes out of it. It's kind of up to you. Since everything is kind of almost getting to the point where it's ready, I will grab a bowl that I can use to actually serve the chili. So one thing I'll say here is the chili still looks pretty watery. Let me show it to you. Like that. But that's also kind of, oops, that's also kind of the top. So you can see it's thickening up a little bit. It could probably go for a little longer, honestly, and I might just leave it on a really low heat for even longer after we're done here. But what I will do is I will take some of this out and show you how to plate it and check on the flavor and see if there's anything that I would adjust at this stage. Okay, see some of this is starting to stick to the bottom. Because I should have used a non-stick pan, but that is fine. You're gonna all this good. And what I might do later, so something I do with like, if this happens and I'm like, oh man, like some of this is stuck here, I'll take off what I can. And then for the rest of it, I will turn it into something else. So I might actually put in like a little bit of wine in here to deglaze and then scrape up all of the bits and then save that or use that for something. Sorry, Christine, were you gonna say something?
So someone wanted to ask, they were like, if you'd added some of the tomato paste, would that have possibly thickened it up a little bit?
Oh, thicken this, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, that could have thickened it up, although the amount of tomato paste that I needed to kind of add wouldn't have been that much, just because it's such a concentrated flavor that I wouldn't have added as much. I think what I should have probably done is added a little bit less of the vegetable broth. So if I add a little bit less of the vegetable broth, it wouldn't be this watery, but I'm also not concerned at this point because I know if I just let this kind of go for a little bit, it's going to thicken. And this stuff is really best eaten the next day when everything has a chance to like, so this is going to taste like peak around like lunchtime tomorrow. So I'm going to have to, at lunchtime tomorrow, I will take a photo of it in like good light and stuff, and I'll send it to you and show you what it looks like. But in the meantime, we are still going to plate this thing. Let me grab a bowl. Let me grab a different bowl. Hang on, guys. Okay. I'm going to grab, let me show you how I do this. Let's try some of this in the meantime. Oh, that's actually very good. Oh my God, Christine.
I know I haven't tried the Beyond Meat yet, and I hear great things about it.
Wow, that's actually, I've actually never had the Beyond beef crumble. So I think I've had like Impossible, and I've had a couple different soy versions. Yeah, it's so good. Are you vegetarian, Janice? Oh, you are. Oh my gosh, wonderful. Yeah, so this is, I'm glad I just added salt and pepper to it because it already has a great flavor. I gotta check like what's in there. Man, okay. All right, let us plate this. I'm gonna grab some of this. I still have a little water here, but chili really should be thicker, so noted. Thank you, add that. Okay, so we have this in here. Let me go ahead and top this with other things. Okay, here's this. So I am going to top it with some shredder. Here we go. Just like that. I'm going to add a little bit of sage to the top. I'm also going to add some cilantro. Looks like that. I'm going to add in some avocado. Actually, just cut it up like this. Oops. Yeah, this is where, I mean, like you can, this is where mise en place really helps because then you're not like trying to scoop things out with your hand. Let's see if we could grab this. Oh, see that? There's like a couple greens going on there. There's like the sage, the cilantro, the light green of the avocado. And then we are going to add a little bit of the Beyond Beef. Just like that. And then the last thing we will add is that sauce, which I thought I wouldn't be drinking from a cup. We shall see. Here's the sauce. Just take a little drizzle like that. Just gonna put a little to the side here. See that? You can add more if you like. Add less if you like. And that's your whole thing. Another thing you could really add in here, I think I provided like suggestions for toppings. You could put in, I mentioned before, roasted cauliflower. You could put in if you want roasted Brussels sprouts, again, this is what I mean when I say like, get creative with emptying your fridge and pantry out, use the stuff that's in there. Those could be great. Tortilla chips, like super simple to just grab. If you don't have tortilla chips and don't want to go out and get them, croutons. That would work. If you wanted to put like a little fried egg on there, if you eat eggs, you could add that on there. You could add a couple just like lime wedges for people who kind of want to like squeeze a little more lime in here. So all this is like a chili and oh yeah, I know. I wish I could. This is the thing. Like we're basically waiting for my 3.5-year-old to get vaccinated. And once he does, I am going to start kind of doing my pop-up like dinners more where people can just like come over and I'm making a meal and stuff. And I really wish like you guys could try the stuff I'm making because I'm always eating these and I'm like, and then I promise I'm actually enjoying them. There's no way to prove it, right? There's no way to prove it because you guys can't smell it. You can't eat it. Okay, I'm gonna have a bite.
I hope in the future to be at Sruthi's eating some of her food.
I know. I think once I brought Christine like something.
Yes,
I forget which one it was.
You did. You brought me. Was it pumpkin soup? No, squash soup.
Maybe. Oh, the Jamaican squash soup.
The Jamaican squash soup. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Here's a bite, guys. Like I'm very big on especially the first couple bites has to include everything, right? So it has the beans, it has the Beyond Beef, it has doesn't have avocado. I'm gonna grab that. So it has some sauce, has some sage, has some cilantro, and now I'm gonna try it. Let's see. Oh my God. Yeah.
You said it will peak tomorrow in lunch, right?
It'll peak tomorrow at lunch, but it's like.
So you can ship it overnight with FedEx.
I know. It might be okay if I do that, if I can make the cutoff. Very good. And after I make something like this, I always try to think about like, okay, is this how I want this to taste, right? Not like, is it horrible? Like, I love how this tastes. It tastes great. I'm thinking like, is this how I want it to taste? Is there anything I would kind of do different? One thing I'm actually going to do is add, she didn't add this to that yet because it's still, I want it to simmer a little more. One of the last steps in the recipe is to put in a little drizzle of red wine vinegar into the stew. That gives it a little bit of that acidity because right now the acidity is coming from the lime that's in the sauce we made. And it's when I get that kick that the chili kind of feels like complete. But some of that, in my opinion, should be coming from the chili alone. So once this kind of like reduces, because I don't want to add that in and have it like cook for another 20 minutes really. So I'll add it when there's maybe like 5 minutes left. And it'll add like something in the background flavor wise. And then it'll also take away from some of that richness and that grittiness that's coming from the beets. So that's what I would do. But I'm going to take a picture of this when this is all done and send it to you. But that's how I would assemble it. Go kind of crazy with your toppings, like use the things you have. Don't feel the need to go buy sage just because I used sage. The nice thing about this is it really tastes like a fusion dish. You know, it tastes sort of meaty, but not really. It tastes like Mexican, but it also tastes a little bit Italian because of the herbs that we put in there. It feels very, very warm and hearty. And it's super healthy. Like you saw all of the stuff I put in there. It's so many veggies. Like I would not eat that many veggies if they were all separate, and I would not cook them all separately. But here you have like your carrots, your celery, your onion, your garlic, your ginger. You have your spices to give the flavor, and then you have the beans and the tomato sauce. So really feel free to like adapt this. If you guys make any of this, I would love to kind of see what you've made or hear about it. And again, like I said, my high like secret ingredient for many things now is tahini. I'm not going to add it here because this tastes good as is, but sometimes I'll stir in some tahini for like change up the color, add some nuttiness, make it a little creamy, mellow things out. So yeah, experiment with that. Don't let that jar of tahini go bad. You open it for something, you'll find new ways to use it up.
All right, does anyone have any questions at all? Again, recipe is going to be sent out on Monday when I send our weekly email. And yeah, thank you so much, Sruthi.
Thanks, guys.
It's chilly. The forecast is chilly right now. So
Thank you, Lori.
definitely we would love to see if you guys do make any vegetarian chili inspired by Sruthi. Please send some pics our way. We love to see whatever.
Yes, I'm going to send some pics tomorrow. This is already reducing. I'm going to show you really quick, like where the line was. Like, do you see where the line was and where it is now? So like, it's happening. There's like science and chemistry happening in there. So that's why I'm just going to leave it alone for a little while.
That is awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you guys for joining. I'm so happy that you're a vegetarian. And you know, because
and a while ago, I went to one of your classes where you did, I call them my pepper poppers. You called them something different. But that recipe is like on the fridge. I make it all the time.
Really? It's the stuffed peppers, I think I called them. Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. I'm so glad you enjoyed it. Yeah, I was telling Christine earlier, like my, I do like contract research for this market research agency. And I kind of told them, I was like, starting December 10th, like, I don't want to take projects till January just because I wanted to focus more on like cooking. So hopefully more classes, but also just more cooking in general and not like getting takeout. So looking forward to it.
Awesome.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, thank
All
you.
right. Thanks, guys. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, and anyone who may have watched this on our YouTube channel, you can always reach out to us at taste@nl.edu for any of the recipes or any other information. And we will see everyone next week on Monday. We have Lydia Burns, our favorite cheesemonger, who will be doing a talk on pairing sparkling wines with cheese, of course. It's going to be amazing.
Yum.
So,
Yum.
yeah.
Okay. I'm off Monday, so I might
I
have to
be there then. So,
okay,
see
awesome.
everyone then, and have a fantastic weekend,
All right,
everybody.
thank you. Bye,
Guys,
everyone.
see you later.
All right,
Bye.
bye.